What's up, you beautiful people? Welcome back to another episode of Unaligned and Unfiltered. I'm your host, Jack, or the Twisted Wanderer, and welcome to Scoliosis Sunday edition on Tuesday. Today, we're talking all about scoliosis, our body, and our mind, and how they're all connected. Your girl is feeling rather reflective. 10 years ago, it was a hot girl summer for me, the last summer ever without my spinal fusion, my last summer ever as a 25-year-old gal with just scoliosis, not scoliosis and a spinal fusion, right? And it's so wild to think about because so much has changed, so much has happened since then. And I'm just really feeling reflective about my journey coming up on 10 years. My 10-year spinal anniversary, Spiniversary, is September 6th of this year. So less than 2 months away. And I'm just feeling really reflective about those really newly fused years, the grief I was carrying, everything that I really went through. And we're going to end the episode with things that are helping now and the resources I have found. And I'm going to mention one of those resources throughout the episode, and that's going to be The Body Keeps the Score. And I'm super excited to share that resource because it's really given me a lot of insight, and it's given me the ability to give myself grace for younger me and not always being the best body, the best caretaker to my body and my mind. So, but really my body. Oh, girl. Woo! But we'll get into it. So, I just wanted to make one call out because I am going to be very detailed about how my body felt post-fusion, newly post-fusion, and like kind of going through years and like things like that. I just wanted to make a call out. If you do have spinal fusion soon and you feel like this would be a helpful episode to listen to, please continue on. If you feel like you have spinal fusion soon and maybe this will be a bit too detailed, save it for a month after post-op, if you will. But just wanted to make that call out here in case anyone does have spinal fusion scheduled soon. So that is today's episode, my beautiful people. I'm really excited to, share this part and talk about this. So without further ado, let's scoliosis and get into this episode. All right. So like I said, 10 years ago, it was summer 2016. Pretty sure Stranger Things had just been released because Stranger Things was the show I binge watched while I was recovering from spinal fusion. I was actually 11 and Tina, the Halloween just after my spinal fusion. So I find that just something to think about. And so yeah, Stranger Things had just come out. I'm pretty sure the song by Rihanna, Work, 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 was like a bop for the summer. And I was bartending on Long Island, on Fire Island, and I was 25 years old. And only 3 years prior, I had lost my childhood best friend, Jake, to an overdose. And I was very much still grieving a lot, like very, 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 very heavy. Like grief never goes away. I think it looks different for everyone as more years pass, but I was nowhere near the, I guess, like, I don't even want to say like well controlled, but like I just was very freshly grieving before I went into spinal fusion surgery. And I like to share that because, like I said, we're going to talk about a book today, Vander Kolk's, The Body Keeps the Score. And just knowing that I was putting on like this outside facade of like partying and bartending and, trying my best to continue living life after I had lost someone so important to me. And as I sit here today, it's Tuesday. His death day is tomorrow, actually. Jake will be gone for 16 years tomorrow. So that is a lot. Wow. So I said this was going to be a deep one, okay? So pretty much like, on the outside, I'm confident, I'm having fun, but inside, internally, 10 years ago during summer, I was grieving so much. I was so afraid of spinal fusion surgery. I was counting down the days. I was crossfitting and drinking and, like from the outside, I feel like it looked like I was cool, calm, and collected, right? But what's happening underneath the surface, when I would drink, but really like even taking the drinking out of it, like underneath the surface, moments where I could be alone. I was so scared. I was isolated. I was in pain. And one big fear that I like to share, because I feel like it's something that maybe we don't talk about a lot, but I had the fear going into surgery that like it was amazing to have family and friends and everyone around me, but to not have like your specific person before a life-changing surgery, it felt so lonely. It felt so scary to me that like, because Jake, I lost him and I loved him so, 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 so much. Still love you, Jake. Um, and I felt like that was the only person who like knew like the deepness of like the darkness of my mind, I guess, if you will. And now losing that person only 3 years ago and now having to go through something so scary and something that no one around me could possibly understand what I was going through. It was just a very uneasy feeling. And instead of, instead of kind of understanding that or trying to move through that, I really just, I've shared this before, I drank about it. And okay, stay with me. And when we drink about things, we don't process things, a lot of things stay in our body. And that's where this book comes in. And this book has really started to help me give grace to myself in the early years of being fused. And going back to like the fear of spinal fusion and then like drinking and like trying to have like this amazing last summer before spinal fusion, I ended up like making unsafe decisions for myself. I ended up not taking care of my body I ended up like in ways this healing journey through therapy, the book that I'm talking about, I've found a way to understand that like, no, my body is mine. And for a really long time and in certain situations, I don't think I felt like it always was. And that's heavy, right? That's a really heavy thing to admit to yourself. But I'm glad I'm able to admit it now and that I'm reflecting, because when we go through such immense grief and we don't process things and we are just drinking through them, they eventually decide to come up on their own. Because like what I'm learning in this book, it's pretty much like when we go through something traumatic, like I personally consider Jake's death traumatic. That was absolutely fucking traumatizing and terrible and sad and all the things. And when take a look at spinal fusion surgery, and I still haven't ever watched the videos, but speaking from like my recovery, what I went through, there were so many, for me, I would personally say like, yeah, a little traumatizing. Just, yeah, that surgery is, as we know, it's one of the top 3. I think it's the top 3 or top 5 most painful surgeries. And then the recovery I've shared how hard my recovery was for those first 2 weeks and how I didn't think like anything was ever going to turn the corner. And when we think about that, how much my body went through, like my bones were moved, my muscles, everything. Like there are 22 screws and 2 rods in my body now. And I'm sure if someone who has watched the surgery can tell you, like, yeah, it's a lot. I'm sure they would say that. So for me, like, I classify these things as traumatizing events in my life now, but I didn't have that understanding then. And now that I have been sharing my journey and that I've gotten myself into therapy, all the resources that I'm like starting to pick up and put in my toolbox are helping me, like I said, give myself grace and kind of shed away shame that I had carried for not taking care of myself. Because in the book, it pretty much Kolk talks about something called interoception. And it's basically like our internal GPS, right? It's our body's way of telling us what's happening inside, whether that's going to be hunger, thirst, things on your, like sensation on your skin, all of that. And it talks about how trauma survivors often use the ability to read those signals accurately, like the GPS just glitches. And knowing that now, it makes a lot of sense because Jake's death kind of led me to, and I wasn't always my best caretaker before this, but it kind of led me down a dark path of making bad decisions for myself. And along that, like, I've made the decision to have spinal fusion in that. So, like, it's wild to me that I was able to make this decision and that I went through with it knowing how hard I was grieving. And when we think about the body keeping score, after surgery, I would say like touch for me became really complicated. Like I'm talking still to this day, I don't like being rubbed with towels. That's just like, I don't like the feeling on it anymore. Or even getting used to, you go through spinal fusion surgery and all your nerves and everything is being moved. And it takes a very long time to understand those new movements and realize like what you don't like, what maybe you would try again, what absolutely you're fucking avoiding and never doing again with your newly fused spine, because they don't give you like a handbook. It really is just trial and error. Some things come up so randomly. And when I think about this, like I think before therapy in this book and all the other things like I'm doing on this healing journey is I think we like I moved through life feeling very like separated from body and mind. Like you can't really feel, or I didn't really feel like compared to now, like with like harm reduction through like lessening alcohol and all that stuff that I'm doing to help myself. When you're in it, in the moment, you're grieving and you're just going through life and you're just trying to figure out the next day. How do I get through the next day? And that's kind of how, honestly, I felt like that for a really long time. You can't see yourself as clearly as I can see myself clearly now because I'm not seeing myself through the lens of drinking anymore, or just like way less, you know what I mean? Or not using it to cope, because now when things come up, I make sure I feel them. I make sure I have my journal. Another thing I'm thinking of recently, thank you to Teresa from T3 Fit, is I really want to get a canvas and try to paint my spine and maybe process what actually happened that way, because I didn't process. And why I share all that is because, like, it makes sense why I felt, of course you're going to feel alienated, I think, personally, from my own experience of spinal fusion. You wake up feeling like there's something in you, not like there's something a part of you. It took me a while to feel like my spinal fusion is a part of me. I would really just say, like, probably this year, as I'm like going through healing. But for a really long time, like, like I thought, like, oh, it's just like the surgical stuff. It's the numbness, it's normal recovery things. But what the bigger thing of it is just, you don't just lose, or I personally didn't just lose feelings in my back. Like, I still have like numbness on my left lumbar side. But I lost, if I even had the ability to do this, I think I did prior to, like at 19 maybe. But I lost the feeling to trust what my body was telling me. I lost the, yeah, just trust with myself and my body. And the craziest thing about that is, like, you feel like you've lost this trust with your body in the whole realm of things. But then when I look back to my first, second steps, I got myself up and trusted that my body could get up. Or maybe I just was like, this is just what I have to do. I'm just going to fucking do it. But I just remember feeling like, one, this is so painful. Two, I was so stiff. I remember feeling like just so unable to move, but somehow I'm getting up and walking. But it just felt like, it felt so surreal to walk less than 24 hours after spinal fusion, knowing what I know now about how much I was grieving, how much I was scared and doubtful about so many things. And anyone who walks their first step knows how emotional that is. And I hope you know that you're a spinal fusion baddie. Okay. I'm so proud of you. And, that's a moment in my life that I will never forget, because against reason, against everything that I've been through, against grief, I took those steps. I went under spinal fusion surgery. I got through fears that literally I would drink to forget these fears. You know what I mean? Like, that's how much I was coping with alcohol. And, I used to be like, oh my gosh, girl, what were you doing? But, like, now I know what you were doing. Girl, you were surviving the next day and your life the best way you knew how to. You didn't have any other tools. So if you're listening to this and it sounds familiar and you are maybe beating yourself up for not taking care of yourself sooner, don't beat yourself up, because we can't be mad about things that we didn't know. We can't beat ourselves up for getting through life with the tools that we had at this time. All we can do is play the cards that we're dealt the best that we fucking can when shit happens, and just really hold grace for yourself and understand that you're not alone. So, it takes time. It takes so much time to rebuild the trust in our body. It takes patience. It takes, practice. It really does take practice. And when we do feel, like, I will say, in the early years, I felt very alienated from my spine. I would say, honestly, I kind of just felt like it wasn't mine. And I think maybe, I don't know, it could be that, I had my spine for 25 years and then I woke up with a brand new one. And the takeaway here, something I want to focus on, is that I've said this before, like the doctors for me, treat scoliosis when they diagnose it, when they talk about spinal fusion, they talk about it so nonchalantly. They talk about it as if you will be fixed after spinal fusion surgery. And we know now that that isn't the case after finding community and finding Schroth and all that good, amazing stuff that I have found through this journey. But I didn't have that at that time. So it makes so much sense to me why I went back to, like drinking after spinal fusion surgery. And like alcohol is not good. You ever wake up from a day of drinking with your friends with a spinal fusion? It's literally like the Tin Man. It's like, get me some oil. My bones are dehydrated. I'm squeaking. Like, it's not great for our bones. It's not great for our fusion. And I did it like a lot. Now I've gotten a lot better. I've been doing so much better, and I'm proud of myself and the journey that I'm on. But now, instead of like looking back and like being like, oh my God, girl, what are you doing? I can look back and be like, no wonder you went back to what you were coping with because you had no other tools. You didn't have community. They treated it nonchalantly. So you just magically thinks you're fixed. You're not doing scoliosis specific exercises in the gym. You're just like going back to life as you knew it with a brand new spine and not changing anything else because like, hello, it's nonchalant from the doctor. It's nonchalant from there. And you just go back to old patterns that help keep you safe and help you kind of, I dissociated from Jake's death and I dissociated from my own body because I wasn't taking care of it. Like Kolk calls it dissociation. And it's the mind's way of protecting us by creating distance. And that makes so much sense now looking back. Like my body already learned that like through Jake's death, like my body already learned like this is too much to carry on my own or feel or process. So I'm going to drink and I'm going to dissociate. And, you can drink and talk about the person that you love and it's awesome. So, I've had amazing like conversations, heartfelt conversation, tears around that. But if we're not processing something in another way, the same way that what happens to us from spinal fusion surgery and everything that we feel, the body holds onto it until we can process it. And that's like what I'm starting to understand. So like my body already learned that leaving was the safest option. Dissociation was the safest options. Now I'm having a major surgery. Obviously I'm going to dissociate from my spine. Of course, like, I feel like, of course, like that's what I did. Like, it just makes more sense now. Sorry. But just like we learn to dissociate, maybe subconsciously, however it is that we learn, I think it really is like subconsciously. You don't even know you're doing it because I didn't even know that word back then. That's what it is. And that's what I was doing. And that's why I love like, even though this journey is hard and it's a vulnerable one and it's sad at times, I'm really grateful that I've been able to find help and find vocabulary that helps me process what I've been through. So I really recommend this book if you haven't read this book. I'm not even done reading this book, and I just really just feel like it's helped me so much. So, like I said, we learn to dissociate, we can learn to come back to ourselves because guess what? That's what I'm kind of doing every day. Every day, like I have rules around my boozing now. Like if I do want a beverage, it has to just be because I want this beverage and not because something is happening. Something feels overwhelming. Like that can't be why I reach for a drink. And like that's a way of learning. That's a way of harm reducing with alcohol. Journaling, writing down what I feel, staring it in the face, staring at myself in the mirror. That's not fun, but it's been helpful. Like meeting myself again has been the biggest blessing through this difficult journey. When we think about dissociation and numbing, like that was my regulation. That was how I was regulating myself. Like if you think about the year before my spinal fusion surgery, bartending in Nashville, and I had great year, but there's also lots of dark shit there too. And just drinking was my off switch. I carried a lot of shame about this for a really long time because, and honestly, like it's so much less now that I understand like how our body holds on to things and how I need to process things. But through this book and through Kolk's like way of explaining like what traumatized people go through, it's been able to reframe like the narrative I've had for all these years. And that feels just so nice. Because I just wish people understood grief more, because if people took the time to understand grief more in all the forms, I feel like we would have more grace for people who do have addictions and who do have substance abuse problems. And something else I learned like through this journey is that people with ADHD, especially women, are more prone to abuse substances. So because I had ADHD, I was already more prone to do that. And then you adding grief and things that I had been through, cumulative grief, this makes more sense now. And I'm glad. Like it just feels nice to understand ourselves more. And I want this for everyone. So I definitely recommend picking up the book, The Body Keeps the Score by Kolk. And I'll put that in the episode description box. But so I just want you to know, like, if you're in this place right now or you've been there, I see you. There is no judgment here, just a whole lot of like, hey, me too. And like, there is another way. It's never too late to change. It's never too late to show up for ourselves. And as soon as like I started reading this book, something clicked in me. Like, I can change and I'm not alone. And, like we just do the best that we can through this life. So I also really want to talk about something else that came up for me post-fusion that if you also have this, I would love to hear from you. Please message me, twistedwanderer418@gmail.com or The Twisted Wanderer on Instagram. You can always DM me. But one other thing that came about in reading this book, I noticed like crowded spaces now spike my anxiety because of my fusion. And it kind of I kind of compare it to how if someone calls me at a certain time a certain time, I'm like scared someone's dead because I've had phone calls that changed my life in the worst ways a lot of times. And so like I had a fear of phone calls for a while. I'm a big texter. And then also like the fear of crowds after surgery. So it's just like understanding our bodies more and why they react the way they react. And if we're able to process them, we can just get answers that maybe we felt like we would never get. Because I never expected to feel this way. Like if you would have told Jack, like baby Jack, 25-year-old Jack, that in 10 years, she's going to be hosting a podcast and has a scoliosis community and like wants to be an entrepreneur now, I would just be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like I don't know. I was in such a fucked up place. I would be like, yeah, okay, I don't believe you. Like, but here I am. And it feels I'm really grateful to be here. So yeah, crowded spaces. It kind of, in this book, it kind of talks about like hypervigilance. Like you're just, or a good way to put it is like you're always waiting for the next shoe to drop. When you've been through so much, it gets easy for us to, or myself, to look for the worst or like, well, when's the next shitty thing going to happen? And you can almost start living in this terrible space every day because of the fears of the unknowns, and you lose the present day. And it's pretty much just like your nervous system is scanning for danger, even when we know that we're safe. And, another thing I didn't know, a nervous system. Like, what are those? I'm glad anyone paid attention in high school. Good for you. I'm not that guy. So like, yeah, just understanding like our bodies are so complex. And even when we feel like our spine or our mind is against us, it's working so hard to protect us, to process things for us. And it has its own way of doing that. And once we understand its own way of doing that, and we can connect the body and the mind to what we have been through, it's almost like this sense of power coming back. Like, yes, I voluntarily handed my body over to spinal fusion surgery. But I had and was not prepared at all for the journey that was in front of me. And in the moments of my first steps and that pain, I realized like, oh shit, this is going to be fucking hard. This is going to be long fucking journey. Did I know how long? No, but it's just nice to make sense of things. So I hope hope we're on the same page, my peoples. Like our body is just like always looking. It's always looking 24/7, deciding if we're safe or not before our brain gets involved, right? Our nervous system, my nervous system learned from surgery and grief to stay on high alert. Like, and it doesn't just turn off. It is a constant, like, okay, just because it's happened doesn't mean X, Y, and Z will happen. And it's a constant thing that we need, that I'm working on. And along with this book and now, like, today is day one. Today's day one of week 3 of my spinal fusion scoliosis strengthening program. And that's been really helpful too. Like therapy, reading things that spike our curiosity because we want to understand things more. It's all this new toolbox that I'm creating in order to live a more aligned life for myself. But I'll always be unaligned because I'm neurotypical. And yeah, so that is just, it's just really cool. Like once we really, really, like I never thought like I'd be to this side, to this amount of understanding and, dare I say, acceptance of my fusion. Like, going back to that question, it takes a long time to feel at home in our bodies again. Personally, for me, I will say this is the most I've ever felt at home coming up on my 10 years. And I think it's all because of the work that I've been doing for almost 2.5 years, almost 2 years through therapy and sharing my story, like starting to share my story about almost 3 years ago this October. So if you are feeling lost and overwhelmed with grief, if you are feeling shameful, if you are feeling like spinal fusion is scary, I want you to know that all these things are valid, but I want you to know that things get better. And the more we understand about scoliosis, the mind, our body, and how we ourselves process things, the more that we feel, or personally, I feel like I have control over things. Like one big fear of mine that's starting to change and shift is growing older with my spinal fusion. That was always my number one fear. One of my number one fears. I have a lot. and like being able to now understand like what Schroth is, having EMDR, having cognitive therapy, harm reducing through alcohol. Like we're all connected. Like our body and our mind, it's all one. And the journey to feel back to that after we've had major losses, major surgery, it's not an easy one. And I want you to know that there is no time limit on this. Everything that I'm sharing with you today, there is no time limit on it. This is just my journey unraveling. And I'm hoping that by sharing it, I will shed some light onto your journey. Because maybe, like I said, you're feeling alone. You're feeling overwhelmed. I will say, again, not a medical professional, not a therapist. My biggest piece of advice here is find a healthy outlet to process what you're going through when you feel ready. I know it's really, really hard to process things we've been through. It's hard to revisit where we felt those things come up. It's hard to sit with it. And so I just want you to know it's really, really hard. But for me, it's been worth it. Because if we don't process things, they stay in our body and they decide when they're going to come up. And if we process things and we stare at things and we direct it and we do the hard shit, we can almost like be a bit more in control of it, I feel. Like take me sharing my story. Starting to share my story in October 2023 brought up a lot of emotions. And like I felt myself over those months getting more and more like stressed, right? And I hadn't changed anything about myself here. Like I was still very much like coping with drinking, doing whatever, like drinking was heavy still. And when March 2024 came around, I just woke, excuse me, hiccup. I just woke up one morning with like grief demanding to be felt. So much sadness, so much overwhelm, so much scared of the future. Trigger warning, suicidal ideation. And that was a lot. And it was so fucking scary. Because I just didn't understand. I'm like, where is this all coming from? It's like, you think you've processed it. I've been drinking about it. But now that I was talking about it and then not processing it, like a journal and just like going back to like, I think that's why it happened. Like I finally started to talk about it, but like I wasn't putting it anywhere still. Like whether that's a journal or writing, which is something I'm finally like getting back to again. Like it's just, it feels really freeing to be on this journey. And I hope you know that you can do this if you want to do this. And that healing is hard. I don't think I'll ever magically be healed, but the healing journey, I feel like a lot of people put like, oh, my healing journey. Like this shit is rough. Like I'm not trying to sugarcoat it because hello, unaligned and unfiltered, but also because you should know how rough it is from someone who is here telling you like, fuck, like this is a lot. this is a lot, but for me, it's made me a better caretaker of my mind and my spine. And for that, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for therapy. I'm grateful for the books I'm reading and the resources I have found to just try and make more sense of my journey thus far. So, my beautiful people, I will leave y'all with this. We don't get to choose what happens to us. Sometimes we just don't get to. We don't get to choose when people enter or leave our lives. We don't get to choose to, get a new spine and not have scoliosis. But we do get to choose how we can react. And we get to choose if we want to grow. And we get to choose if we want to do the hard shit that's going to make us better in the long run. And I also want to say, just because you're healing doesn't mean that you're leaving your people behind. Because I think that was another part for me, was just look, if I'm able to get through my day-to-day more, does that mean I'm leaving Jake and Grandma and Mr. Rick and JK and Grandpa and, all the people that I've lost behind? No. It just means that I'm trying to live a better life for them and for myself. And something my grandfather said, I think I've said on this podcast before, is that we honor those we lost by living. And that's what I'm trying to do these days. Because for a long time, I wasn't living. I was drinking. So, yeah. I definitely recommend picking up this book, The Body Keeps the Score. Let me know what you think about it. I'm not finished with it yet. I'm sure I'll have more to talk about, but just from what I am learning, I just really wanted to share and connect this to grief, our body, and our minds, because it's all connected and it's so important that we take care of it. So I will see you all on Twisted Thursday for Disability Pride Month episode. And I'll see you again on Scully Sunday. Hopefully this one will come out on Sunday. But I appreciate you all so much for just being here on this journey with me as I'm learning to do the pod thing and just continue to share my story. But until next time, my beautiful people, take care of your spine, take care of your mind. I'll see you next time. Love ya.